Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. In this lesson, inshallah, we'll be going through the analysis of the poem The Little Boy Lost. Okay, we'll begin. So, the poem is Father, Father, where are you going? Oh, do not walk so fast. Speak, Father, speak to your little boy, or else I shall be lost. The night was dark, no father was there, the child was wet with dew, the mire was deep, and child did weep, and away the baby. So even though the poem is only 88 lines long, it powerfully describes a frightening experience that a young child goes through. The poem almost follows a regular rhyme scheme of A, B, C, D, D, E, F, E, but some of the rhymes are not exact. Acha ji. So let me give you a brief overview of what the whole poem is about. Uh, this poem tells the story of a young child who goes out looking for his father and ends up getting lost in the woods. The father moves farther and farther away from the boy. The child can no longer see or hear him. He is left alone in the dark without anyone to guide him. After some time of suffering, the vapors, which might taken as the mist or fog, they disappear, and it seems that he may be able to find his way again. So the poem can also be understood in a symbolic way, just as a person might sometimes lose faith in God, which would be taken as vapors, mist or foggy, and again, the life becomes misty and foggy for a person. So when a person sometimes might lose faith in God and he might feel lost while trying to find its way back towards his connection to God. Again, the boy also feels alone in this manner and confused before things become clearer. So Blake uses the voice of a child in the first stanza, which makes the theme seem honest and full of fear. जैसे कि ऐसा लग रहा है कि एक बच्चा in that kind of a very tense and terrifying situation, he is revealing his story himself. But in the second stanza, the point of view changes, that we see the situation from the outside. Up, we are looking at it. The third person is looking. This makes the scene even more sad and even sadder and emotional. You, okay, we cannot do anything, we're not in control, but the only thing we can do is to watch the child go through his misery. The images of the dark night and the deep mud make the reader feel the child's fear and helplessness. The poem is not only about a lost boy, but also about the feeling of being lost in life. So Blake manages to express deep ideas about innocence, loneliness, and the difficulties of life in just a few lines. That is what makes the poem so powerful. Let us now move on to the line by line, stanza by stanza explanation of the stanza one. Father, Father, where are you going? Oh, do not walk so fast. Speak, Father, speak to your little boy, or else I shall be lost. So this short poem is divided between two different speakers, a young boy who's making an emotional plea to his father, and a narrator who briefly describes the actions and conditions of the child in the second stanza. In the first stanza, the speaker is young boy mentioned in the title, जैसे कि लिखा हुआ है, the little boy lost. Blake does not give many details about the setting, कहाँ है, किधर है, but we can guess that the boy is outside, okay, walking alone on the road at night. His father is ahead of him, and the boy is trying to follow him. However, the father is walking too fast and farther away, going out of the boy's sight. This makes the child scared because it is dark and he cannot see properly. तो क्या करेगा बच्चा? So the boy then calls out, "Father, Father," and asks that where is he going. This suggests that they are not walking together side by side. Instead, the boy is following behind while the father moves on. देखो इस context को समझना जरूरी है. Why? Because the God and the human being cannot walk side by side. The God would be always a bit further away from the person, from the human being. In fact, the boy, because the God is going to work as a guiding soul. So the boy will have to, the human being will have to follow the God. So instead, the boy is falling behind while the father moves ahead. The father is going somewhere unknown, but he does not seem to care enough to slow down or comfort his son. So the father keeps walking faster than the child can manage. Then the boy begs him, "Oh, do not walk. Oh, do not walk so fast. He asks his father to speak to him, to speak to your little boy. The child wants comfort, the child wants reassurance, but he gets. देखो, there are times when a person can judge the direction where to go by listening to the sound. So, if he could not see him, he started asking the father to speak. Otherwise, then speaking and listening to the voice of the father would be the only sort or kind of direction he would have. But the father does not respond. Or can we say in the second contact, the father might have responded, but he was so lost in life as a human being. यानी कि father in the form of a god might have responded, but the child, I think, in the form of a human being, might be so lost that he could not hear it. Okay, so since he cannot see his father in the dark, he hopes to hear his voice instead. The boy is afraid he will get lost. But the father, if he's still there at all, does not answer or come back. This brings us to the second stanza and the last stanza of this poem. The second stanza continues the story of the young boy. The night was dark, no father was there, the child was wet with you. The Maya was deep, and the child did weep and away the vapor. So the second stanza continues the story of the young boy, but now it is told from the perspective of a narrator unfolding the scene around him. So the narrator begins by describing the night as being dark. The boy most likely does not know where he is or how to get home. There is no safe place in this point. The narrator reveals that there was, in fact, no father there, and again, no guiding soul. Whether or not the father was there at one point, it is not made clear, but there is hope inside for the child who is now completely alone. ऐसे hope, भाई, okay ना? And possibly abandoned in the dark. The speaker now takes some time to describe the state of the child hoping to evoke feelings of pity from the reader. The child is traveling alone at night and is wet with you. This change of scene from night to a reference to you could mean that the child has been out there all night. And as morning is dawning, he has been covered with dew from the surrounding trees. The last two lines of the poem suggest that there may be a deeper meaning behind the story. Last two lines, the Maya was deep, and the child did weep, and away the vapor flew. So there might be a deeper meaning behind the story. यानी कि the only hope जो अभी बात बोला मैंने कि क्या है hope वो यही होगा weeping would be the hope that if weeping से कुछ होगा okay but that would be taken as a metaphorical meaning. So the child is in a very hard situation. Blake uses the word mire. Mire का क्या मतलब होता है? Swampy, muddy place. Okay, so Blake uses the word mire to show how difficult things are for him. This suggests that the boy may be standing in wet, muddy ground while he cries, feeling completely alone and hopeless. The final line is different from the rest of the poem and it feels important. It says that as the child wept, away the vapor flew. This could mean that the mist or fog around him disappeared, allowing him to see clearly. It might also have a deeper meaning. Yeah, the poem can be understood in a spiritual way, not just as a simple story. Blake often included religious ideas in his poetry, and we are all aware of that. If we read it this way, then the little boy could represent anyone who feels lost in life and is searching for guidance from a father, meaning God or religion. So the boy is desperate and almost praying for help. When he cries and accepts his situation, the vapors disappear. This may suggest that his confusion clears and he regains faith or understanding. So excess demand, excess asking from God and crying into the God, that was the only hope the child had for proper guidance. And when he called God like that, the God did respond. And the father who was not responding earlier, he did respond this time. With this, we move on to the themes of this poem. The first theme would be abandonment. So the most obvious theme is abandoned because he was abandoned by the लेकिन अगर देखा जाए as a human being who is religious and now not religious, he when he becomes non-religious, he kind of gets some kind of gets stuck in some sort of a trap, and then he is abandoned by his God. okay, abandoned by his parents, and that is the time when he faces more difficulties, and then he has to ask for help from God, and then that abandonment is lifted away. So the most obvious thing over here is abandonment. The boy calls out to his father, but there is no one. By the second stanza, we are told clearly that no father was there. This suggests an emotional or physical abandonment. The silence of the father makes the child's fear, child's distress, child's terror even more painful. Okay, so this is how the theme of abandonment is working to highlight and underscore the fear of the child. Okay, ji. Second theme is the loss of innocence. So the poem appears in Songs of Innocence, yet the child faces a harsh and frightening reality. लेकिन क्या ऐसा हर poem में नहीं था? In all the poems of Songs of Innocence, else than one or two poems, most of the poems, the children are facing some kind of harsh or frightening reality. It's just that they are completely unaware about it. So the experience of being alone, either though he is actually abandoned, he is very much clearly, literally, physically out there in a harsh and frightening reality. So, lekin this is also working some positive manner. The experience of being alone in the dark, it symbolizes a moment when innocence is threatened and the safe world of childhood is replaced by fear and confusion. Okay, so what is the positivity out of it? That after this fear and confusion, that innocent child would not remain innocent enough, he would become experienced. Again, this is debatable again, okay, whether it should come under positive thing or a negative. The third theme is fear and vulnerability. The dark night, the deep mire, the cold dew, all these things together, they highlight the helplessness of the child, the vulnerability of the child. Plague shows that how vulnerable children are, especially when they lack protection and guidance. They have to have some sort of people always present in their life to protect them, to guide them. The boy's repeated cries for help, they emphasize his dependence and fear. So he's excessively and again repeatedly calling for help. This shows that how dependent he is, okay, and how much in fear he is. The next theme over here is number four, spiritual loss and search for God. So the father can be understood symbolically as God over here. The boy's desperate calls may represent a person searching for divine guidance, but feeling spiritually lost. The flying away of the vapor may suggest a moment of spiritual clarity or awakening after suffering. And this brings us to the fifth and the last theme of the poem, suffering as a part to awake. The child weeps in the fire before the vapor disappears. This may suggest that suffering leads to realization or clarity, जो कि मैंने positivity की बात की थी. Emotionally or spiritually, hardship becomes a turning point. देखो hardship के बाद ही बंदा उठता है, निकलता है, but it becomes a better human being. Okay, so there is hope of suffering, it leads to awareness. यानी कि suffering as an innocent person, it makes a person experience और experience क्या होता है? Aware होता है. This brings us to the poetic techniques present in this poem, repetition, dialogue, shift perspective, imagery, symbolism, and juxtaposition. The first literary device presented over here is repetition. The poem opens with Father, Father, mirroring what? The frantic calls of the child for his father. This repetition immediately puts us as the readers in the boy's shoes, feeling his growing panic. Panic is clear because of fear that if he's going to get completely lost, who's going to guide him? There would be no way to get taken back to the home. The second literary device is dialogue. The first stanza's direct speech makes the boy's plea immediate and personal. He's talking to father. Father is not present over there, but he's trying to have a conversation with the father. But there is no response from the father. So this makes the request, the plea of the child quite immediate, quite personal. Okay, we are not just told about his fear. but in a way we can hear his conversation, we can hear his words, we can hear his dialogues, in which we can sense the fear, we can sense the tension, we can sense the panic. Then the next literary device is shift in perspective. You know कि किस तरीके से perspective change हुआ first stanza से second stanza में. The second stanza switch to third person narration is quite jarring. It is as if we are suddenly pulled away from the boy, emphasizing how alone and isolated he is. ऐसा लग रहा है कि वो शीशे के बाहर अंदर अंदर he is present over here in an occupation, uh, completely bounded by a mirror, or we as the readers, as onlookers, are looking at his display. पहले तो in the first stanza when we was having a dialogue, we could hear him speak. ना, so it felt some sort of closeness. लेकिन इधर shift in perspective की वजह से, the third person narration की वजह से, the child has become more isolated, more alone. Okay. The next literary device is image. So descriptions like the night was dark and the mire was deep. They aren't just setting the scene. They are actually क्या कहते हैं उसको, they are physical manifestations of the boy's emotional state. Physical reveal यानी कि जो boy का जो emotional state है, if there would have been any physical, any tangible way to show the present emotional state of the child, तो ये जो the night was the dark, the mire was deep, ये क्या बन जाएंगे, उसकी physical annotations बन जाएंगी, उसकी physical implications, उसकी physical क्या कहेंगे realities बन जाएंगी. Okay, so the they the night was dark and the fire was deep into description. Then they aren't just setting the scene, but they are physical states of the boy's emotional state. So and the boy is surrounded by darkness. He is the mire was deep, but the mire क्या हो जाएगा उसका despair. तो ऐसा लग रहा है that he is sinking into despair. And with every moment he is going into sadness more and with this, we move on to the next literary device, which is symbolism. The vapor isn't just any simple common weather detail. It likely in this poem represents the last traces of the father's absence. यानी कि जब तक वेपर था, father was absent. Okay, ना जब तक वेपर था, there was hopelessness. So it represents the absence of the father. It represents the hopelessness of the father. But with vapor going away, with vapor disappearing, the hope comes back, the father comes back. So vapor becomes a symbol. Then last but not the least, the juxtaposition, the opposite. So the stark difference between the two stanzas, from the boy's active pleas request to his passive abandonment. It highlights the cruel shift in his situation. यानी कि जब तक उसके पास hope था, he was asking, crying for help. जब hope खत्म हुआ, now he is completely isolated in the second sentence, nothing to do. तो ये सारी टेक्निक्स का रीजन क्या है भाई? by using these techniques, Blake doesn't just tell us about a lost boy. He makes us feel the child's fear. He makes us feel the desperation of the child. He makes us feel the ultimate abandonment and isolation of the child. The poem becomes an instinctual experience of childhood vulnerability and spiritual abandonment. I hope you have understood it. With this, we are going to come to the structure and form of this poem. So this poem is structured in two quatrains, two stanzas. Each is a quatrain, and each stanza contains alternating longer and shorter. This creates a rhythmic imbalance that mirrors the child's unsettled state. Irregularity है, so this shows कि the child's the mental state है वो कितना unsettled है. The first stanza is a dialogue with the boy addressing his father or trying to speak to his father, while the second stanza, which has been shifted, it has been shifted to third person narration. Okay, and it is emphasizing what the boy is isolation. थोड़ी सी प्राइम सीन की बात कर लेते हैं. द पोएम फॉलोज एन ABCBDEFE rhyme scheme. So the alternative rhymes in each quatrain, जैसे कि fast and lost as a slant rhyme. देखो fast and lost सिर्फ आखिरी जो ट साउंड है, एस की साउंड है, that is aligning. लेकिन उससे पहले जो उसका vowel sound है, that is not aligning the rhyme. So I talked about this in the last video as well. So this is a slant rhyme. And then due and flu. They create a sense of incompleteness. What are they doing? They are echoing, they are evoking the boy's unfulfilled desire for his father's attention. Okay, past and lost, and they are slant. And then due and flu. क्या पता चल रहा है? The father ड्यू से क्या पता चल रहा है? डिफिकल्ट सिचुएशन. लॉस से क्या पता चल रहा है? अवे फ्रॉम द फादर. ओके ना? Unfilled desire of his father's attention. So the imperfect rhyme between going and boy in the first stanza. तो हम देख लेते हैं फर्स्ट स्टैंजा. लुक ओवर हियर. गोइंग एंड बॉय. तो ये तो राइम्स है ही ना. जैसे कि मैंने क्या बताया था, द राइम स्कीम इज ए बी सी बी. ओके, देयर इज नो राइम ओवर हियर. ओके, तो ये जो इम्परफेक्ट राइम है, यानी कि राइम का ना होना है इन द फर्स्ट स्टैंजा, इट कॉन्ट्रास्ट विद द परफेक्ट राइम्स इन द सेकंड स्टैंजा. इधर यू और टू तो परफेक्ट राइम आ गए. ओके ना, जबकि इधर फास्ट एंड लॉस आर नॉट परफेक्ट राइम. Okay, no? So they are subtly underscoring, highlighting the transition from the boy's hopeful calls to the stark reality of his abandonment. यहाँ पे hopeful calls to the father गायब हो गया. Now the reality of his abandonment. अच्छा जी. अब as far as his the meter of the poem is concerned, थोड़ी सी इसकी भी बात कर लेते हैं. So the meter is predominantly iambic meter, but with significant variations. The first stanza opens with trochees. Trochees क्या होता है? Stress unstressed. देखो, और iambic क्या होता है? Unstressed stress. So there are a few trochees over here as well, यानी कि irregularity हो गई. देखो, trochee is opposite to iambic. So iambic is unstressed stress and trochee is stress stress. Stress unstressed. So this father father के अंदर जो fa है, that is stress, and the is this is mirroring what the child's urgent cries. ओके ना? तो इनिशियल जो सिलेबल है वर्ड का, दैट इज फुल ऑफ what? Full of stress. This shows the passion in the cries, the tension in the cries of child. This stanza therefore fluctuates between iams and trochees, reflecting what? The distress of the poet. Because when a person is sad, when a person is in a state of distress, so he is not thinking clearly. Mind mind keeps shifting from one place to another. Actually, the second stanza settles into a more regular iambic pattern, with the only one variation being a middle anapest. Anapest क्या है? It is two unstressed syllables followed by one stress. देखो, on line 5 and 7 देख लेते हैं भैया. ये रही आपकी line 5. The night was dark, no father was there, the child was wet. Okay, up these NFS is two unstressed syllables. The night was dark. Okay, unstressed syllable. और आगे भी ये 5 7 के अंदर the Maya was deep. Okay, तो अपना क्या कह रहा था मैं? तो ये जो contrast है in the meter and in the structure, it is emphasizing the transition from the child's perspective to the observer's perspective. And what is it highlighting? It is highlighting the boy's increasing isolation. With this, we end the explanation of this poem. I hope you understood it. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask.